Tinder date tried to kill me. This was in November 2016 in Glasgow, Scotland. I was desperate, I must admit. I'd been single and alone for some time, and it was driving me crazy. That's when I met Laura. She came across as a very sweet girl and all, but she was in a hurry to meet me. So I did. She insisted we go to the pub. No fancy dates were necessary to her. I didn't mind this. At first glance, I knew I'd been swindled. She looked different from what I'd seen before, but I didn't mind. I was just happy to have a date. I'm not exactly good looking myself. I gave her a chance to redeem herself. We got talking, and after a few beers, things started to get more intimate. Before I go further, she was quite an overweight girl with long dark hair, and she had eyeshadow similar to Amy Winehouse. She said she was a huge fan. I'd asked about her hobbies and interests, etc., but she asked me to talk more about myself. I told her about my job, and she yawned sarcastically. "Let's talk about your sex life," she said. She had slipped her foot out of her shoe and started rubbing my groin with her bare foot. Needless to say, I was aroused. So yeah, I didn't have much to say in that department, as it had been a while since I had sex. I was very honest with her. I asked about hers, and she said she has her kinks, and that she's done things that I'd never have imagined. "Wanna see what I can do?" she said. "Let's go to my place." So at this point, I was starting to feel very drunk, which I was amazed at, as I was only on to my 4th pint. I did have 2 shots though, and put it down to this. We'd waited for a taxi. She was holding my hand excitedly, whispering into my ear that she was going to do some things to me that I'd never experienced before. In a way, I actually couldn't wait to just sleep. My head felt heavier than the rest of my body. It was like the ground was moving beneath my feet. The rest was a blur. I couldn't even remember getting into the taxi, but I do remember falling down the stairs, and she was above me laughing at me. "Come on," she said. "Get your sexy ass up here." I struggled up the stairs, and before I know it, from what I remember, I was in her bedroom naked. It was like I'd blacked out. I tried to sit up only to find myself tied to the bed by my arms and legs. Then she entered the room dressed in bondage gear. I was deeply aroused but confused at the same time. She performed sex acts on me before having full intercourse. I lay there delighted. Don't get me wrong, but something still felt off about it all. I had dozed off for a bit, and I'd been woken up by a weird screeching sound. "What are you doing?" I'd said as she was wrapping up my legs with cling film. "Hush now," she said. "This is the best bit." I was no longer tied to the bed, but I felt very numb, and couldn't move my arms and legs. She kept wrapping me up from my legs upwards. I was screaming at her to stop, and she had placed some cling film in my mouth to shut me up. I was struggling to breathe at this point, and had tried my best to dislodge the ball of cling film from my mouth. Eventually, I was totally wrapped from head to toe. I could barely see outside the cling film. She told me that this was my punishment for being terrible in bed, and that she has many other victims just like me, all wrapped up waiting to die. She left the room, and I'd give out some muffled screams. Then I felt myself slowly fading away. I woke up the next day, now able to breathe. This time there were people looking at me. They'd removed most of the cling film and had resuscitated me. I wasn't aware of this till they told me. It turned out that I wasn't actually Laura's flat, but an old-fashioned hotel. The police were all over me, asking me questions about what had happened. I attempted to show them her Tinder profile, but she had deleted the page. I am grateful to my rescuers that had saved me, but forever traumatized by this incident. And I end up with panic attacks when I see people that are similar to her. It took me a few years to finally trust people enough to go on dates, but I am still on the road to recovery mentally. I'm just glad that I'm still alive, but wondering if she's still out there, and if there are others like me that didn't make it.